just say,
Okay, so they can always get bits they miss on the recording.
yep, and they can always ask questions once they join. Okay, so which one do you folks want to start with, the Fireworks Galaxy or the Cat's Eye?
I'm easy.
I'm easy, but I think possibly I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think the Fireworks Galaxy is what most people wanted to see.
Okay.
But I think they were all interested in how you did the core of the Cat's Eye as well, if there's time for that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We will, if time permits here, go through them both. And bear with me, I'm just getting to, okay, now I got to go back here and share my screen. Bear with me one sec.
Yeah, we've got one more just joined.
Excellent. Somewhere here, there we are, sharing.
Somebody's name is admin.
Okay, so let me know if you can see my Pix Insight screen.
Yes, great.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, now I have to figure out how to make this bar go away. There we are. Okay, so we will start with, once I get to my desktop, the Fireworks Galaxy. Now, the processing that's done in linear form, or in linear, before the first stretch, is pretty consistent with what I showed last time. Is it worth going going through it again, or just pull up one that's already been processed to the end of the linear processing?
I think to save time, maybe.
Sorry, what was that, Derek?
Maybe just rush through the steps, or just mention the steps up to there.
Sure. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'll open the unprocessed version first, just so I can show people. Here is the Fireworks Galaxy, and it is unprocessed. It hasn't been color corrected or anything. It's got this god-awful green background. So the steps are usually pretty straightforward for me, at least, in processing my image before I stretch it. Very first thing I do is I use Blur Exterminator, and I sharpen the image. Now this is the very first step before noise reduction, before color correction, before anything. The reason for that is anything else you do destroys the point spread function from the stars. So Blur Exterminator, along with any other deconvolution routine, needs a measurement of the point spread function. We get that from the stars in the image, and if you do anything to the image, you destroy the point spread function. It's no longer valid. So that's the first thing I do. Once I do that, I then color correct the image, and I generally use, color calibration, the spectrophotometric color correction function in Pix Insight. It requires that the image be plate solved, and of course the image as I sent it out would need to be plate solved, and I do that using the astrometry script in Pix Insight. If your package doesn't, go ahead.
Yeah, just a note on that, Blair. I ran into the same thing. I had to go back and ensure that I had the right variables in the image solve, or it wouldn't. And one of them happened to be the pixel size.
Yes. Yeah, and so, that is a very good point, Bob. I did include in the data for this image the camera that it was taken from and the telescope. So you could figure it out from that, but you are correct. I didn't include that. And in the next image, at least in next image of mine that I post to the group, I'll include that so people don't have to go figure it out.
Okay. I happen to have the same camera, so it was
it was easy for you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so then finally, after it is color calibrated, the next thing I would do is noise reduce the image while it still has not yet been stretched. The function I use for that is another plugin called Noise Exterminator, and another RC Astro plugin. and it does an awesome job. I almost always use 3 to 5 iterations, usually 3. I generally denoise the intensity by about 96%. You can do a little more if the image is really noisy. And I usually denoise color by 100%. The new AI in Noise Exterminator allows you to reduce the noise in the color channels separate from the intensity channels. So it puts it over into, what is it, CYI space or whatever, and does it that way. And it allows you to get a very nice linearly processed image, which I will now pull up. And it will save us having to wait for those things to run, because the deconvolution and the noise exterminator take, on this computer, say 5-ish minutes. So we'll open one that's already had just the processing that I just described done to it. And it produces this image right here.
Question, Blair.
Yep.
You didn't go through the process of gradient reduction or removal.
I did not do that on this one because there wasn't any real gradient.
Okay, so it was an inspection process. You said
exactly.
It doesn't really require it, and you don't
if,
do it.
If there's no gradient, I don't do it. Exactly.
Okay.
So
I did do it. I got a mild gradient in a couple of areas of the shot, but it was not heavy and certainly not very colorful.
Yeah, no, this image was taken under dark skies at our cottage, so there wasn't really any light pollution gradient to worry about. Okay. So you can see here's the PixInsight screen stretch, and it is yucky, but at any rate, it'll give you an idea. You can see all the gas and dust in the background because the galaxy is embedded in our Milky Way. You can see the galaxy itself, and you can see something in the galaxy that is not usually shown in images of the fireworks galaxy. That's these faint outer arms in this area. Yeah. Normally, all people show is just this bright area. And they also clip away or suppress all this faint gas and dust, which I could never understand. You can get a reasonable image of the galaxy even with all this other stuff in there, and at least to me, it makes it a little more interesting. So from here, we'll proceed with what I call my split star processing. So basically what I'm going to do, I'll start it running here. I'm going to split this into 2 images. One, just the galaxy. The other one will be just the stars. And we'll process them slightly differently so that we can actually apply a different stretch to the stars than the galaxy. And that will prevent the stars from overwhelming the image as they do here in this simple screen stretch. So basically I open up StarNet, I select linear data because it has not been stretched as of yet. And I create a star mask, which is something I figured out from comments from everyone last time around, that it will actually make a star image as well. I don't have to use pixel math to get it. And we'll just start that running. It'll take a couple of minutes and we'll have 2 images when we're done, one of just the stars and one of everything else.
And you chose StarNet 2 rather than Star Exterminator because?
Because I'm Scottish and it's free.
Okay. Normally when you buy those things, you get all 3. So
yeah. No, StarNet works quite well for me, so I never bothered to go get Star Exterminator. So StarNet is also available. It used to be available. I'm not sure it still is. That's something I'll have to check on, as a standalone app. So those that don't have PixInsight or something that will support the plugin interface, you can run it as a standalone app. And it's about a third of the way done here now.
I use it in Sorrel, the free program. Yeah. It used to be, as you say, standalone. I think the standalone version is still available. I'm not sure.
Okay, I think it is. Last time I looked. Yeah, we're at 50% done here. Fortunately, the graphics processor on my old laptop here is supported, and even though it's an old i7 machine, most of the AI stuff will run reasonably quickly.
This is pretty fast. It's actually much faster than my desktop, which is faster than my laptop.
The machine I normally do image processing on is a whopping i9 with like 20 cores and lots of RAM, but its graphics processor is not supported. It's got Intel graphics.
Okay.
And it, however, runs just about as fast just using the 20 cores in the main processor. Okay, here we go. So now you can see we have a star image right here. And we have the galaxy. And if I shrink this down a bit, and we let it do a screen stretch again. So you can see in the galaxy image, we've got all this gas and dust. Some of this gas and dust is quite noisy, as you can see, right? And you'll see later that there's a ton of detail in here, but it doesn't show up in the PixInsight screen stretch. Now,
At this point, sorry, Blair, you've already done a denoise.
This is after denoising, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to denoise again at some stage?
Eventually. Okay. This screen stretch that is applied here is rather excessive. So a lot of this noise comes way up. You'll see in just a minute. I'm just going to get rid of or move to another workspace here, this star image, just because it sort of gets in the way. I'll move it to the second workspace here. There we go. And we'll come back to it in a bit. Now I'm going to change the name on this to G for Galaxy, for no other reason than when I start using pixel math, it's much easier to type G than Zoo Fireworks Galaxy Linear. So now, first thing we're going to do with this, now that we have the Galaxy only, we're going to give it a reasonable, once my screen comes back here, there we go. We're going to give it a reasonable stretch. So I'm going to turn off the screen stretch. You can see there's virtually nothing there. And we're going to use GHS, which stands for Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch. And I think that is now available in Cyril as well, is it not, Derek?
It is, yes.
Sorry, what was that?
The menu and the way it works is slightly different than in PixInsight, but it's basically the same thing.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to color mode. I generally do that because I get control then using this blend slider of the amount of color in the image. And a lot of images will be a little washed out, and this will return color to them. Now we have to zoom in and we have to see the histogram. So I'm going to zoom in once or twice. There we go. Now you can see the histogram here. And generally speaking, you select, let me zoom in just a little more on the histogram so we can see this. Generally, you either select the histogram peak or a little to the right. I'm going to go a little to the right here simply because I've stretched this image before and that tends to work a bit better. And we'll turn on the screen preview here so I can see what happens as I stretch it. Bear with me, I've got to shrink that down and move it out of the way. There we go. So now the next thing we're going to do, by selecting this as the symmetry point, I will send it down to the symmetry point. Now my stretch, I was about to point with my hand at the screen, which does nothing. This is the point around which things over this side will be brightened, things on this side will be dimmed relative to the value here. And you can see that once we show the curve. So we're just going to start stretching this image, and you can see here is the galaxy. And if we sort of zoom in on that galaxy, you can see there's some reasonable detail there. And if we zoom out a bit, you can see what I meant by what that curve is doing. It flattens off down here, then it slopes up, and then it begins to flatten off again on the other side of the symmetry point. Now, here's the catch. I'm going to duplicate this image just 1 second. And we'll just go back to this one. I can stretch this image so I have lots of core detail, which is like so. Okay, so can everyone see that nice core detail?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Or I can stretch this image for all that nice faint gas and dust. Right? But you notice what it did to the core. The core is now washed out. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this technique to get the best of both worlds. So the first things first, we're going to pull out an image of the core with lots of detail. And we'll zoom in so we can have a look. And you can see that the core looks pretty good. We've got some HA regions, we've got detail. If I zoom in a little more, right into the core of the galaxy. Everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I can probably bring out just a little bit more detail by changing the local intensity a bit. There we go. So now if you look at that, here's the galaxy. Oops. You'll notice there's not much of the surrounding gas and dust. It's a little bit better than some of the usual images you get in that you do see some of the faint odor areas, but they're not overly bright. So that's our first stretch, and we're going to apply that to the image. And you can see now, here's the image with all that galaxy core detail. You notice I haven't done any noise reduction to this because the noise in this is not all that bad, because I haven't stretched it a whole lot. Now we're going to go to the other image. And same thing here, we're going to look at the data, but this time, you notice I left the symmetry point the same. There's no need to. You can vary that between the two images. Now what we're going to do though, is we're going to stretch this image to pull out lots of that faint gas and dust in the background. And in doing so, too far. I'm going to lose the core detail. So now we're just going to up the contrast here a little bit. There we go. But you'll notice now that the core is pretty washed out, right? Compared to the other image. And we can stretch that even a little more to bring out a little more of that background gas and dust. Ooh, not quite that much. And we'll go there. It's just a matter of choice how much of this you do, how much stretching you want to apply. But let's go to there just for now. And I'll say that that is about what I want, and I will apply that to the image.
Blair, you use the adjust parameter for the
for the symmetry point.
ESP, for the symmetry point. Thank you.
Yep.
I've been doing it without touching that because I thought that was sacrosanct. Once you've set it and you're using your stretch factor.
No, all this is, you notice those words, fine adjustment?
Yes, I saw that.
That's all that is. If
Okay.
I slide this slider, it's because this image is linear. We're only talking a very small difference between the two values that I used.
Yep.
I'd never be able to select that with this slider. I'd have to key a number in.
Yep.
Using the fine adjustment, I can get much finer control, and I have two steps of control. I have what I just used and slightly coarser adjustments if I check that box off.
Okay.
Both of which, however, are much finer than this. So that allows me as a linear image to stretch that and still maintain control. If I had tried to move this slider, it would have just gone away.
Yep.
And
Okay,
that works for any of the parameters. I can select any of them and get that fine control.
A quick point, Blair.
Yeah.
This menu is different to the one you get in Cyril. You don't have a color mode in Cyril, and you don't have this fine adjustment parameter in Cyril.
You don't have color mode?
You have a color saturation mode. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the same.
No, it's not.
What are the other modes?
Saturation. What's that?
This is very different. You don't have this menu at all with all those options. Color. You
Interesting.
don't have the color options.
Interesting.
You have 4 or 5 modes, but they're called something else. They're not anything to do with colors. There is a saturation mode like that, but
that's interesting. Color, I'm going to undo this stretch here just for a minute, just to show you what color does. So I haven't adjusted anything else here, so you can see if I pull this up, here's the galaxy just as we looked at it. You notice all this color in here?
Yep.
If I go to RGB mode, it all disappeared.
It's gone.
okay.
Right? So if I go to color, I'm stretching in CYI space now as opposed to RGB space, and I can actually adjust how much of that color I want in the image.
I'm just opening up my Cyril. I'm going to look at the menu and see what the names of those options are. But yeah, you don't have that.
Especially when we get to the star layer, that color mode is almost essential. It allows us to keep the color in the stars.
Okay, I've got the GHS open here, and yes, it's called color stretch model, but and then you have independent channel values, or human weighted luminance, or even weighted luminance, and then a saturation stretch, and that's all you have. So it's not the same at all.
Interesting. That's good to know. It will still maintain color, and you can probably apply a saturation stretch after the fact, but color mode makes it so much easier. Interesting.
Maybe another thing in favor of getting pics inside.
Yeah. It's interesting though why color mode is not in the one in Cyril. I don't suppose you have an older version that you could update.
I'll see if I can update it somehow. They do update these things sometimes, and one doesn't always keep up with updates.
Yeah, it could be that an update brought in that color blend mode. That mode is awesome. It's well worth updating if you can get it that way. Any rate, here is our galaxy. Whoops, here will be our galaxy. All stretched. Now, the next thing you will notice is there's a lot of noise in this image because I've now stretched it rather severely. So we're going to bring that noise down. There's a whole variety of noise reduction techniques we could use. We could use noise exterminator. We could use some of the built-in Pix Insight noise reduction techniques. You know, there's TVG denoise, which will do a reasonable job. The one I tend to use when I've got lots of large scale noise, as we do in this image, I tend to use a median transform. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select about 8 layers, and I'm going to turn on the preview. It'll take a second to run here. Now, this is not going to do anything because I haven't adjusted anything yet, but it's going to calculate all the median scale transforms, and it's going to sit at 0% for a while and zip across and be finished. So it's not one of those nice linear progress bars. So just bear with my computer a minute. This part gets a little like watching grass grow.
Is this
and
just
what we're going to do is we're going to
question? Sorry, Blair. Is the intended use of this multi-scale median transform is the intended use only for noise, or is it used for actually other things as well, like sharpening? Or
you can sharpen as well. Yeah. I tend to like it for sharpening as well because it doesn't provide any ringing around bright targets. Now, just one thing. I may have stretched this image a little too much. Let me just check something. No, it's okay. We'll go with it, and if I've overstretched it, I've overstretched it. So now what we want to do, we want to discover which detail layer will take out most of this noise. Generally speaking, we start at the finer layers, and all I'm doing is I'm turning off a layer to see what it does. So now there is no information from layer 3. It didn't do a whole lot. We'll go to layer 4. Same thing, didn't do a whole lot. Layer 5. I'm assuming that's updating. Oh yeah, there we go. So layer 6 took out a bunch of the noise. So what we're going to do, we're going to start our noise reduction at layer 6. And we'll zoom in a bit here. And just sort of grab some of the background so we can see it. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the threshold and attempt to take out some of that noise. Let's just see here what happens when I turn that layer off. Nothing. Okay, so we're going to have to go here and just dial that up some more. Now you can see it started to blur. The finer noise is still there, and that's blurred a little too much for my liking, so I'll turn the amount slider down. And now we'll go to the next layer down. And if my mouse will keep up with me here. We'll let that crunch. And again, I've taken out a little too much, so we'll just slide the strength slider down a bit. And I'm just doing this by eye. So now you can see we've gotten rid of some of it. We'll go to the next layer down. And same thing, take out some of that noise. Again, that blurred it a little too much. And go to the next layer down. Now, can everyone see the really fine noise that's in that image? Is that showing up through Zoom?
It's not as clear as it
Difficult to
is for
see, but
you.
you can see it, I think.
Okay, so that's what I'm attempting to get rid of, and I'm going to finer and finer layers in an attempt to make that go away. And it's almost there. It's thinking. That's got most of it. So let's start with that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the preview off, and you can see the difference, right? We let it do its thing. Now the question is, have I taken too much of it out? So now we'll go back to the image as a whole. And it's got to run again, bear with me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. There we are. Okay. So I think I've taken a little too much of the noise out. You notice how smooth that is?
Mhm.
So what we'll do, we'll just start reducing some of the larger values here. And just get a little more of the background the way we want. It's just a little, it has that artificial look to it at the moment.
You're getting some of the dark detail back now.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. We can play. It's one of those things that you would play around with by eye to get what you want. That may not be perfect just yet, but it's not bad. Now, I'm just going to turn that preview off. And I've gone back to the other image just to check something.
Blair, while you're doing that, have you compared the results of the multi-scale transfer with something like Noise Exterminator and seen what the differences are?
The short answer is yes. The differences are that if it was all fine scale noise in the Terminator, once you get those larger noise clumps, I tend to find that Noise Exterminator doesn't work on those as well. So median or linear transform.
They do.
Did you hear that okay, Bob?
I heard what you said. I'm trying to picture. I've tried some things like that, and I found you're right. There are clumps that don't disappear.
Oh, okay. The reason I if you use Noise Exterminator, some of the clumps won't go away.
Yeah.
If you what's this doing? You know what? That got applied to the wrong image, I believe. No?
No, you were. I could see it changing when you were talking. It was running.
It was, but I don't see any difference in the image. Just one sec. That is G-clone.
Did you apply the last stretch, the adjustments for the first set?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
It didn't. Although I ran the multi-scale, I've had that happen a couple of times. I don't have a good reason why that happens. Yes, I do. It got applied to the wrong image.
Yes, it didn't apply to this one.
Yeah, there. Okay, let's apply it to the right one. We'll run it again.
David Smith has just joined us.
Am I an hour late?
But generally, I find that if there's clumping, what's that?
Am I an hour late?
Yeah, if there's clumping noise like there is in this image,
David just came in. Dave Smith just arrived and is asking if he's an hour late. That's kind of
the short answer is yes, but don't worry about it. It works really well when it's a nice fine noise. When it's a larger scale clumpy noise like is in the background of this image, it doesn't do as well. So I tend to use the median transform for that.
okay.
There we are. So now you can see the effect. The background is nice and smooth, maybe a little too smooth, but we'll leave it there for now. Now you notice there's one thing that I did not use when I was doing that. I didn't make a mask.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't make a mask is all of the fine detail that would have shown up is in this image anyway. We're going to put it back in. So here's the way this works. We need to make a mask of the brighter of the two images. So this image, we'll make a mask out of it. All I'm doing to make the mask, I'm just pulling out the luminance. So here's the luminance. Now what we're going to do, actually before I do it, I'm going to use this just as it is to show you why we end up blurring it. So I'm going to call this M, just because I hate typing long names, no other reason. And we'll call this B for the same reason. So now what we're going to do, we're going to make an image stack with this on the bottom, this image that's been stretched to show the core on the top, and we're going to combine the two using this mask. So the way it's going to work is this. If you had a layer capable processor, what you would do, you'd make a stack with the brighter image on the bottom, the dimmer image on top, And to the dimmer image, you would apply the mask that was made from the bright image. In PixInsight, you have to do that with pixel math. So just bear with me. We will take the bright image, which is B, and we will multiply it by 1 minus the mask, and we will add the dimmer image, which is G, multiplied by just the mask. So you can see what that's going to do. It's going to, wherever the mask is bright, it's going to take G. Wherever the mask is dim, it's going to take B, and it will blend the two together. Now, what I have to do, though, is I have to select, create a new image so it doesn't obliterate one. And we'll go here. Now, I want you to look. Notice the core is all washed out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply this pixel math. And now we have our core, but you will notice that the contrast is all gone. Notice that? Now I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to blur the mask before I do it. So we'll take this, we just apply a convolution, and we blur it rather substantially. Let's see. That's probably enough there. It might even be too much. Again, it's just done by eye, but there we go. We'll try that much, and if that doesn't give us the contrast we want, we'll blur it some more. So now we have a blurred mask, and now we're going to do that same pixel math with the blurred mask. Whoops, I have to go back to color mode. There we go. Click on the color image. And if you look now, now we have some contrast back. We can get a little more back, and we could stretch the detail image a little more to blend it in a little. But you notice what just happened? Now we have the nice core detail, and we have all this faint gas and dust out here. And all of the galaxies that were in the image, the detail came back in them because it was all in that dim image. See?
Yep. Fantastic.
So what we've just done, we now have the best of both worlds. Now, I didn't quite stretch the, one sec, let me close that. I didn't quite stretch this image enough. So we're just going to stretch it a little bit more. Probably just use a curve will work just fine, I suspect. Lost a little bit of color there, so we'll bring the color back up. There we go. There we go. So all I've done, I've just made that image a little bit brighter, but I also want to there we go. That's not too bad. Let's see the difference. Don't really like that effect. One sec. We'll use a different stretch. We want to go to linear mode and just, oops, get over here, and we'll just brighten it up a bit.
Don't forget your preview. No.
Yeah, there we go. So now you can see the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll brighten it up maybe a little bit more. That's not too bad. Okay, come on. Okay, so now we have this image, as I said, the dim image. We have the bright image, and we will go and apply that pixel math one more time. There we go.
Yep.
So now you can see we have an image that has those faint outer arms, lots of core detail, lots of color. Still needs a little noise reduction, of course. And what I would have done, I would have noise reduced the dim image before I added them together here. But you can see what's happened, right? We have all of the stuff in the frame that we couldn't get with a single stretch. Now, you can do that by putting a mask over the core when you're stretching the bright image, but I find it very, very difficult to get a good blend when I do that. So I'm going to take this mask and just blur it even a little bit more. 1 sec here. There should be convolution right here. I'm just going to blur it a bit more just to take out as much detail as I can. That's not bad. Let's see what that does. We'll get a little more contrast in the image. Oops, I keep forgetting if I'm on the mask, it puts it in grayscale. There we go. Okay. So now the only other thing left to do in this is sort of set the black and white points. And we can do that with any number of transforms, but I'm going to go back to the generalized hyperbolic stretch. Set it. I like this particular technique because it doesn't clip the low end. So what you do, you set the symmetry point below the histogram. So now you can see it down there. Then you take the highlight protection and you dial it down as low as it'll go. It will stop at the symmetry point. Now when I take the stretch factor and drive it upward, this will come down and it will not clip. It will compress at the bottom if necessary. And you can see now we have a decent looking image. We got lots of gas and dust. We got a ton of core detail. We could even brighten it up a little bit more. Just bear with me a minute. We'll take this down a little more there. And then close that. So here is our galaxy image. And like I said, we can brighten that up a little bit if we want. And you just simply stick this in linear mode and pull the white point down is by far the easiest route to do that. We'll stretch it linearly. There we go. So now we have our image. We have detail right into the core, as you can see. And there's a little noise in there, which I could have taken down before I added the images together. It's in the dim image. And all we have left to do now is stretch the stars and put them back in. So we'll go over to the star only image, which I will call S. Oop, not A, S. One more time. There we are. Okay, so now we have this. We're going to use GHS again. And Derek, here's where color mode really shines.
Okay.
So if you can update it and get color mode, it will be well worth it. I'll show you what I mean. We're going to turn on this. We're going to, oops, now I have to wait for that to go away. Just give it a second. There we go. So now you can see if I take the screen stretch off, there's only a few stars visible in the image. And now what we're going to do, we're going to leave the symmetry point at 0, go to color mode, and we're going to stretch it until we see stars. And then I'm going to zoom in on some of the stars. Now, as I take the local intensity and slide it up a bit, look at the color come in that star. Can you see that on, right? If I do that in RGB mode, the color is substantially muted. Can you see the difference?
Yes, big difference.
Right. This is where color mode really shines. And I can blend the two. So I can take it down to what it would be in RGB mode or I can go nuts and put in a ton of color. You see the difference?
Yep.
Okay, now the one catch is if you slide the local intensity slider too far, the star profile gets weird. I'm going to zoom right in on that star. So if I take this and I slide it way up here, you see what happens? So what you want to do is you want to set that so you get decent color. Now, if I take that right down, you can see I'm pointing on my screen again. The core of the star is actually saturated. But here we've got some decent color, right, on the star, and we'll go with that for now. Okay, we may not yet have enough stars in the image, but we'll start with that. So now what we do, we go back to the galaxy image, and there's any number of ways to combine this image, which I'm now going to call G1, with the stars. The one that I tend to like using is this, S plus G1. So that simply adds the two together, but that tends to make the stars overwhelm the image. So now what I'm going to do is S times G1. In PixInsight, values of 1 are saturated. So S is always less than 1. G1 is always less than 1. So this will be a fraction of this value. And so I can subtract off some of that fraction and not have the stars overwhelm the image. And you can see it does a reasonable job. So here's our galaxy. The galaxy and all the nice clouds of gas and dust stand right out. The galaxy has got detail right into the core, and the stars don't overwhelm the image. So you get a reasonable image. The closer the two images are together in brightness, the bright galaxy and the dimmer one, so this bright one and the dim one, which is hidden behind everything here, the better the final image will look, even if you have to do it in 3 layers rather than 2. So you could stretch it 3 times, one to bring out sort of mid-brightness detail, another one the core, and then the faint stuff, and you just make 2 masks and add them together, and it does a really good job at allowing you to stretch the image and get all this great detail in the background, plus maintain the core detail in that galaxy. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, bear with me a second if I do this right. Okay, any questions?
Just need practice now.
No,
Just a comment, my PixInsight buy meter has shot up by a huge margin.
what's that?
My PixInsight buy pressure meter has shot up by a big margin.
Definitely see if there's an update to GHS for Cyril. See if you can get that color mode. It would be worth it if you can't get color mode for Cyril and your budget allows buying PixInsight and the plugins, it's worth it just to get that color mode.
I also don't think I can do this whole masking and combining job in Cyril. I don't think that might be possible. I mean, you do have pixel math in Cyril, but I'll see. I'll see if I can figure out a way to do it. But it would work differently than PixInsight.
Yeah, if you can't do it in Cyril, you can always port the individual files out to Images Plus and do it in Images Plus.
I have done it in Photoshop.
Yeah, you can do it in Photoshop as well. The nice part about Images Plus is,
masking and combining is relatively easy in Photoshop.
yeah, you can do it in Images Plus as well as the nice part about Images Plus is you can dump them as 32-bit FITs or TIFF files. Of course, you
Okay.
can do you can do that in Photoshop now. But the advantage to Images Plus is it's free.
Okay.
Um, so it has a layer tool. You can bring the layers in, put the mask on the top layer. Let me see if I save those images. Just bear with me a second. I shrink that down. Can everyone still see my PixInsight screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Now I am going to. Okay, I got to stop sharing a minute, and I have to change what I share. I have to share my screen. And now, can you see PixInsight again?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this down. How can I make this thing go away? Okay, hopefully it will here in a minute. There it goes. Okay, so here's the bright image, and I'm going to simply call that bright, and I'm going to save it. I'll save it as a 32-bit TIFF file. So if we say bright, and we save it as a TIFF, it should ask me 32-bit. Yep. And we, okay, and you realize what I just did. I saved the bright one. I saved the dim one as the bright one. Sort of tells you who the dim one is, doesn't it? Try that again.
Just change the name.
Well, what I'll do is I will save dim as a TIFF, and then I'll go save bright as a TIFF. Yes, as a TIFF. And finally, we will save the mask. I could make the mask again in Images Plus, but since it's already made, what the heck, right? There we go. So if I go now to Images Plus,
Astro dog.
What's that?
Astro dog in the background.
Yeah, that was our previous dog. That was Bodie. We had him for 17 and a half years. We have another Bichon now. Let's see here. We want to go to desktop, IP, fireworks, and select TIFF files. And we will open all three of these. Excuse me. So now what we're going to do, we will go to, where is it? Combine all using blend modes. And it'll crunch for a second. I can stop it from crunching because, okay, we're going to take the mask out of the stack. So you can see the bright image is on the bottom. The dim image is the top image. And to the dim image, I'm going to add a mask. And now I have to remember how the heck I do that in Images Plus. It's been a while. There we are. Add mask. And we want, is it this one? And I click on it. And it's crunching away. And once it finishes crunching, you can see it's done the combine. So what we've got, you can see here, we have the bright image on the bottom of the stack. We have the dim image on the top, and the dim image has the mask applied to it. And you can see it's done the same job that we got in PixInsight.
Okay.
Then I could take that and port it back into, in your case, Cyril, as a TIFF image and work with it that way.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't need those images. So I have to close it down first. Flatten. There we go.
Well, I normally
Close it
combine the stars after stretching stars in, so I then combine it in Photoshop back into the.
down. Yeah, that's fine. 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 That's There's no problem doing that way. There's also no problem if you want to combine it in Images Plus as well. Basically, however you like to do the combine, it'll work. So what we want to do now is, here is our starless image. I just have to recombine the stars with it again because I had closed that image. Pixel Math. And click OK. And now we have our stars. And we have all the detail in our galaxies. And I'm looking for, and you can see we have star color. And that's pretty much the processing, other than maybe, set the final black point and white point, maybe one pass at noise reduction just to clean the background up a little bit. But that's the technique that I used for the fireworks galaxy to get all this dim gas and dust, as well as the galactic core detail. It's the same technique I used on the Cat's Eye Nebula, and we'll look at that one next. How are we doing on time there, Derek?
That was fine. I'm fine. It's
Past
okay.
the hour.
Carry on.
Why won't that close? Yes.
Well, that's a far better result than I can get in Cyril. So, and I mean, you rushed it just for demonstration purposes. You didn't even do all the fine bits, the extras. But yeah, it would take me far longer in Cyril, and it's a much better result. So.
Yeah, basically you could do the stretches in Cyril and do the masking and the combining in Images Plus, and you'd get pretty much the same result.
Okay.
So now we will now open up the Cat's Eye. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to do the linear processing. It's already been done on the raw image. I've got it here as a, so this has had linear processing applied to it. So what I've done is I have noise reduced it. You'd never know from the noisy background. And I have sharpened it and color corrected it. So everybody okay if I start at that point?
Sorry, you would you have started with the sharpen deconvolution as you said
Yes.
just now?
Yeah, exactly.
And then SPCC and then denoise.
Correct.
Order. Okay.
Yep. You denoise at the end. The reason is color correction and gradient correction, if you use them, can add some noise. So the last thing you do is noise reduction.
Okay.
This particular image used very short subs, and the camera read noise dominated the image. That's why even after a pass with noise exterminator, you've still got this noisy background in the image. So we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to take the stars out of this image. Where are we at here, etc. And again, it's a linear image, so we'll just let it run. And when it's done, it will produce two images, one with the stars only and one with everything else. There is one thing I didn't show in that fireworks galaxy image that will show in this one, although I don't think it's a big problem in this one. Some of the brighter stars left halos, and you can just clone them out in the galaxy only image. Then when you add the stars back in, you won't have a big halo around the star. This will just take a minute or two here. A little like watching grass grow, but
When I run this, then I go and make a cup of tea and have a check if there's any new news on the TV. for about 7 or 8 minutes, and by then it's about done.
If it weren't for the graphics coprocessor on this machine, I would be doing the same thing. This is not, in its day, this was a very fast laptop. It's an i7 quad core, but it's slow compared to the machine I do most of my image processing on. The reason I'm doing the presentation on this one, it has a camera. The one I use for my image processing doesn't.
That can be resolved, Blair.
It can, but then again, I really don't need a camera on the machine I use for image processing. It's almost done here. And this one is almost as fast for anything that involves AI, like StarNet, because the graphics coprocessor gets used. Okay, and now we'll have two images. There we go. And again, just to get it out of the way, I'll take this star-only image. That's interesting. What just happened there? Oh, sugar. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to have to apply a little bit of a stretch to this first. Otherwise, it takes this as a star. So what we're going to do, we're going to treat it as two images, but I'm not going to take the stars out. Now, if we take this, and we will call this the dim image. I can take the stars out at a later date, at a later time here in a minute, and we'll call this the bright image, B. So we'll come to here, and on this dim image, we're going to stretch it using GHS. But what we're aiming for here is just the core detail. There we go. And if I turn on this, and we're going to zoom in on the core. Actually, I'm going to zoom in on the nebula, which is about there. And if we zoom in a bit here, again, go to color mode. And usually, like I said, just to the right of the peak is usually a pretty good spot. By the way, you can also select that by clicking on the image. If I do that, if I were to click here, you'll notice that it selected it out here. If I click in here, now I'm sort of where I was. And it just picks it right up, the brightness right off the image when you do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stretch this image in color mode again. And I'm going to bring it up a bit. Oops, this is the dim image, so we want just sort of the core. And then if I take the local intensity slider and slide it out and protect the core a bit right here. Okay, now we got a pretty good core image. You notice that there's not a lot of the outside gas and dust, mostly just the core area. Now we make it maybe just a little bit brighter. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring out some of the shells in here.
Yeah.
And again, we'll just take this core protection and dial it down a little bit. So there we go. Now we have the core. And, you know, there's a little bit of the nebula there, but not a lot. The saturation is a little bit high on the red areas here. So you can take this blend slider in color mode and turn that down a bit till it's a little more reasonable. There we go.
You're getting more detail back there.
What's that?
You're getting a lot more detail in the shadows back.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll apply that stretch to the dimmer of the two images right here. Now we're going to come to this bright image. Now this bright image has some problems, to say the least, mostly noise. So what we're going to do here, we're again going to stretch this. Same thing, gonna park that about there. But now I'm going to attempt to stretch it. Let's select that image. Make sure I stretch the right one now, as opposed to what I did last time. So what we're going to do, we're going to stretch this, but I'm not going to worry about the core detail, because that's going to come from the other version of the image. And what I'm interested in seeing here is this outer area here. And I'm not going to go too nuts trying to get it quite as good as I did in my original version, just because I'm just trying to show the idea here. We'll take that down a little bit there. Okay, so there's a sort of reasonable image showing the outer areas. It's not at its final brightness by any means. I just want to check this star to make sure that I didn't blur it too much with the rather excessive local intensity. It is a little off, but we'll ignore that for just now. We can maybe take this down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we'll start there. And we'll stretch that image. So now here we are. Now we want to try and take some of that background noise down. Now that the image has been stretched again, and it is a very fine detailed noise, so what I will do is I will use Noise Exterminator. But in the interests of not having it take all day, we'll only do one iteration. And I suspect that will get rid of most of that noise. Once it does its thing. Assuming it does its thing. There we go. Excuse me. It's not too bad. So now we have a reasonably quiet image, reasonable detail out here. The core is all blown out. So we're going to make... Now, by the way, we could use a painted mask on this one because it's so small, but I think that I will get a better result if I simply make a mask from it. Blur the mask. Before I do, I'm just going to call it mask, or M. There we go. Now we're going to take this and blur it. And the nice part is you get to control the amount of blur you apply. So you want to blur it so that the stars really don't show up and you lose all the detail, except for the overall brightness of certain areas. So let's just take a look. That's not too bad. We could blur it maybe a little more. There we go. Let's try that. Now, the background in this mask may be a little bit too bright just yet, but we'll soon see, because we'll try it and see what we get. If not, we can modify the mask. So again, we're going to use Pixel Math or your favorite layer-based image processor, whichever. We'll create a new image, and we're going to say M times the dim image plus 1 minus M times the bright image. And let's see what that looks like. I think That almost did it. So you can see what's happened now. We've gone from something that has a core that's completely washed out to something that has core detail and has all the shells in the core. And we could play with the mask to get a little more detail back in there, blur it a little more. But really, all we really have to do with this now is maybe just a little stretch and set the black point. And we'll just set the black point using my favorite technique here. Click sort of near the edge of the histogram and send it to the symmetry point, then drop the highlight protection down to the symmetry point. And now when I slide this up, I better turn on the preview so we can see it. Now I should be able to darken the background. There we go. Without clipping anything. And now we can brighten up the thing a little bit. Again, turn on the preview. I may not want to brighten it up that way. That may lose the core. Let me just check. Yeah, that lost the core. So we'll want to brighten it up this way. Clear. Keep forgetting how sensitive that is. And just move the symmetry point up a little bit. Oh, this isn't a linear image anymore, so I'll have to do it that way. And there we go. So by doing that, we now have, once it's finished, that image that still has core detail, and I over brightened it just a little bit there, so I lost a little of the core detail, but you get the idea. And we have all the faint odor areas in that image. That's all there is to it. You stretch it twice. Once for the core, once for the faint odor area. And, you know, I could apply more noise reduction and a gradient removal. There's a little red gradient in there. But in terms of demonstration, that gives you a pretty good idea of how that technique works. And it even works on an image like this one where there's such a big difference in the brightness here relative to the brightness out here. And I can't, with GHS, I cannot stretch this image to keep the core detail in one stretch. So if I try and do that, as an example here, if we take this. Okay, so here is back to the original image. If we just use GHS, which is pretty good at hanging on to detail in bright areas. And we go to color mode. I always do my first stretch in color mode to get the color in the image. And then we try and see what we can get. So if I stretch this until I can see some of this detail.
Quick question, Blair. If you squash down the protect highlight slider,
I'm about to.
will that not make a difference to the core, or enough of a difference?
It does, but it will start to lose some of this stuff.
The detail.
So if you see here, that was my next thing to do here, is to take this down.
There you go.
You see what happens?
Yeah. You lose everything else as well, yeah.
You lose everything else as well. Now, the other thing that's happening here is you will notice all the noise.
Yeah.
That's happening because I can no longer noise reduce the image that has all this data in it without noise reducing this as well. So of course, when I blur this to remove that noise, it's going to blur this detail. Whereas when I did it the other way, I didn't apply any noise reduction to the dim image, because all of this detail here comes from the bright image, and the core didn't need any noise reduction. So as a result, I got a relatively noise-free image that was noise-free across the dim detail and the bright detail in the core. So that'll sort of show you the difference between the two techniques. The one thing I didn't do here, I didn't separate out the stars, and in order to separate the stars, because the image is mostly bright core, what I have to do is I have to apply a very weak stretch to the image first, and then I can run StarNet and separate out the stars, and then stretch it again after that. Just, this is too close to being a star. That's what it amounts to. And that's the whole technique. Basically, it's stretch it at least twice. Sometimes you want to do 3 stretches to concentrate on different brightness details, and then combine them all when you're done using a blurred mask. And the catch is, remember to blur the mask. If you don't blur it, you will lose all the contrast in your image. So that's pretty
great. Thanks very much, Blair. That's great. I learned about every minute of this whole session was valuable to me.
I'm glad you found it useful. Anyone else of the 6 people out there got any questions?
I got to try this.
It takes a little bit of practice to get the right blur on the mask and the right amount of stretch. If you don't have the dim image stretched enough, then what happens is when you combine it with the bright image, there's an obvious darker area. If you're close but not perfect, you can fill that in by just blurring the mask a little more. Okay, that's pretty
Fantastic.
much
And so for those that joined late, of course, the recording is going to be shared with the group.
Yep.
So you can watch anything you missed, and those that were unable to join can also see it.
Yep. Adrian, did you have a question there? I saw you just pop up.
I just commented that I'm going to replay the video and try and follow the steps and see how good stroke bad I actually produce an image. So thank you so much for that. It's very useful.
More than welcome. So basically what I tend to do when I have images that have a very big brightness range, I still use my split star process technique, but I take that background image and stretch it twice, once for the bright detail, once for the dim detail, add them together, then put the stars in.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for that. That's really good.
Thank you, Blair.
Hopefully you'll find it useful, and I'll stop sharing my. Oh, I did stop sharing my screen, I believe. There we go.
Thank you.
Good enough. Good afternoon or good evening, depending upon where you live.
Good evening for
Good
me.
night from me, and good afternoon to all of you.
Which time zone you're in. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, gentlemen.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes,
Thanks, Blair.
bye-bye.
Let me jump in there. This is Chuck. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yep.
I'm the guy that's been floating along on admin, but I'm going to have to duck out. I appreciate the watching you work, but I'm loaded with stuff as I thought I was going to be. So I'll check in every once in a while, but I don't think I can stay on board for a while.
We're pretty much done here now, so we're just about to close it off.
Okay, well, that's it.
Yep. Good enough.
Thanks.
Okay. We'll
Cheers.
talk again, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody. See you next
Yeah.
time. Bye.
Bye-bye.